You're gonna remember this every day for the rest of your life. If you want to get to a goal, if you want to get to your dream, you got to focus on all the little steps. You have to put in your time. You have to be patient and you have to enjoy the process. Whatever you're doing now, whatever you want to be great at, whatever you want to be special at, I'm sure you maybe already be good at it, but to be extraordinary, you have to do extra. I firmly believe that we are all here for a very specific reason, to do something truly extraordinary. But what are you going to do to get there?
Welcome to the show, JL. It's a pleasure to see you.
Brother.
Thank you very much for being here in beautiful, sunny Miami. Miami, it's probably 75 degrees. Back home where you are what's the temperature?
It was 7-degree wind chill when I left.
That's disturbing.
7, not 70.
7?
Missing the 0.
What?
Yeah, I went to pick my son up from kindergarten, and with the COVID procedure, you can't go in. And he decided he was going to play for about 15 minutes. So I was standing outside the door in 7-degree weather. It was, I love the kid. He's amazing. But I was starting to get a little frustrated. My fingers were freezing.
That's ridiculous. I'm sick of that, being from the Boston area. It's absolutely numbing. So JL's in town. He's going to be teaching our body architects and instructors today. He's been so kind to do it. He's taught before here with RPR, which is wonderful. Maybe we'll get into some of that later. But JL has a long history of training, competing, teaching, and just take us through a quick timeline of your history. JL's been on the show before, but I think all the new listeners need to hear about JL's journey.
Yeah. So, number one, just thanks for having me on, and, thanks for, having me come in to talk to your team, as educating and helping not just move the field forward, but move humanity forward. I mean, that's a big purpose of mine, is to make an impact in the world. And for me, I think that's my mission, because, I grew up, just a different way of growing up. Right. I mean, we moved, I think, 10 or 11 times before my freshman year of high school. And I went to a different school in 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. Yeah, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th grade. I went to different schools, and, it was just a lot of challenges growing up. And, as I went into college, I played college football and played at Ferris State University, which is a Division II school in Michigan, and played there. Ended up transferring. I blew my knee out my freshman year skiing, and I got bigger, stronger, faster coming back than I ever was before, and really just interested me in the science of training. And so the trainer at Ferris, his name is Dave Lucy, started giving me books on really. I'd read magazines, and I'd been training since I was 15 years old. And, I was a late bloomer. I mean, my freshman year of high school, I was, 140 pounds, and my sophomore year I was 180 pounds. And my senior year I was 195. And then by my freshman year of college, I was 225. I just was late to puberty, late to develop, and lifting played such a huge role. And for me, that was basically my escape from everything else going on in the world. And, to me, what I still love about the weight room is, the weights don't lie, right? Gravity doesn't change. 45 pounds is 45 pounds every day. Right. And for me, growing up, there was not any consistency in what, that environment was. And so the weight room provided consistency for me. And so, loved it. And when I got bigger, stronger, faster, I said, I want to be a strength and conditioning coach, and I want to help other people do this. And I knew how much it helped me and impacted my life. And, so it became, this is what I want to do. So I had to transfer schools to get my degree in exercise science, had a minor in nutrition. Then from there, I went on to the University of Kentucky, where I was a strength and conditioning coach there. And that's where I discovered powerlifting, did my first powerlifting meet. And there's a gym called Westside Barbell in Columbus, Ohio, which I know you're familiar with. Some of your listeners may not be, but if there's a documentary on Netflix called Westside versus the World about Westside Barbell. And in the documentary is an old clip of me writing my name on the record board for my 775 pound bench press. And, so I had a nice career. I had the 4th highest total in the world all time in 2004. My best numbers in powerlifting, of course, were the 775 bench, 804 pound deadlift, and 905 pound squat. And those were my best full meet totals.
Incredible.
And in 2004, in training, I was doing an 1,100 pound squat and herniated L5-S1. And it was debilitating on a lot of levels. Yes, it was a horrible injury. And I mean, I can remember, at night waking up, needing to go to the bathroom, but I couldn't get out of bed because I was in so much pain. And so I had to crawl to the bathroom and crawl in the bathtub and let it go, man. And, it was bad. And honestly, the physical part of that injury was nothing compared to the mental part. And I mean, it was up to that point, man, I was writing articles. I was all over the place. I mean, I was in Muscle and Fit. I mean, I was everywhere. Right. And I might as well have been in prison for 6 years. And really mentally I was, and just really deep depression. And then I started the Spot Athletics. It's a private training facility that I started in Columbus, Ohio. And started that, man, and it really just gave me purpose again, and it gave me something to really focus my energies on. And Spot was moving along, and I had really what I wanted to do is I wanted to get back on the platform and powerlift again. And so traveled around just an insane amount, learning everything I could. And I say this all the time, that if I had not had that injury and gone through the depression, all the things that I went through, I would not be anywhere close to as good of the strength coach or person I am today. Because at that point, I was one of the best, strongest people in the history of the world. I mean, I was crazy. Let's just, and we've had conversation. I don't know as if there's any other way to say it, but I was a huge asshole. I mean, there's just no other way to say it.
You kind of have to be. You talked about that before, and I hate saying it like that, but you kind of have to be to go in like that, man. It's a dark place.
Yeah, I mean, I called it caveman mentality. I mean, there was guys who used to come to Westside Bar, and I would hear these stories years later, and they would go, man, jails. My roommate at Westside Barbell, he took a motorcycle trip, and he was out in South Dakota, and he had a Westside Barbell shirt on. And someone said, I went there and visited. And my roommate said, well, you obviously you have to know JL. And he goes, man, that guy's a dick. And apparently I was squatting, whatever, it was 1,000 pounds on the bar or whatever, and I was going to squat the bar where the weight was set up, and apparently this guy was standing basically in my path. Right. And so apparently I just grabbed him, threw him to the ground out of the way. And it was funny because my roommate's telling me the story, and I would bet you $1 million it never happened. I have zero recollection of that ever happening. And so, I went from that place to one of the all-time strongest people in the world, and I'm chucking grown men out of my way at will. And then I can't actually put my underwear on or even get up out of bed to go to the bathroom. I mean,
humbling.
It is. I think that was, for me, I'm so grateful to have gone through that experience. Wouldn't want to go through it again, but so grateful to have gone through that experience. And then from there, basically, started the Spot Athletics. That was growing, really doing well with that. And I had learned so much. I was able to start powerlifting again. And in 2014, I won a world championship in deadlift. And after that, I really said, okay, I was best in the world. I'm back to world champion. And then my focus went to the Spot Athletics, and I'm growing my business. And, we've been able to grow, since then. From, 2014, we had a small 2,000 square foot facility inside of a large sports complex. Okay. And now we have two 20,000 square foot private training facilities in Columbus. So
congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, awesome. We've really grown that. And, it's interesting because my whole goal was to keep growing that. And then about 5 years ago, I learned of this system. It's basically a system of breath and body work. And I went and learned it. It literally was life-changing. And you and I have discussed this in the past, but I mean, at that point, I had done a lot of growth, but I just didn't know anything about emotions. And I was just a very angry person. I was always in that survival state, right? If someone looked at me funny, I punched him in the face. And I have a great story about a hot dog I purchased one time that ended up costing me $40,000. That's a story for another day. But and so these pieces, were there, and I was such in that survival mode. And when I learned this system, which, later I've come down here and taught reflexive performance reset. And the cool part with RPR is that it is a self-applied system about breath and body work. So you can do everything yourself. So I'm doing this every day. And honestly, I was doing it because I didn't want my body to hurt, right? I've had, 13 or 14 surgeries on different things from different body parts and from injuries. Yeah. And I mean, to give the listeners a glimpse into how I was going to compete to see who has the strongest grip strength in the world at the Arnold on the Arnold main stage for the Arnold Fitness Classic, which is, brings about 250,000 people into Columbus, Ohio. So main stage, huge competition.
It's a huge event.
Yeah, it's a huge event. So main stage event, good prize money for strength sport. Yeah. And the week before, on Monday, the competition's on Saturday. The week before, I came out of the Spot Athletics and someone had parked and they were blocking me in by about 6 inches and I couldn't get out. Where I was mentally at the time, and again, this was 6 years ago, so before I found RPR and made those changes. And my immediate reaction was, I'm going to pick the car up and move it, which is not a good reaction, by the way. And I learned that lesson because as soon as the tires came off the ground, my right bicep ripped off and just pop.
Oh my goodness.
And I mean, it rolled right up my arm. And immediately I got my cell phone out. I called my doctor and I said, just tore my bicep off. Can I still compete Saturday?
So that's telling in itself. That's so telling.
That's where my mindset was.
Oof.
And it's important to have the right doctor because his response to me was, are you sure it's torn off? I said, definitely. I said, well, yeah, you can't tear it any worse.
Wow.
And so I competed in that event and, just gutted through it and obviously didn't do very well because for grip strength, you kind of need a bicep.
Oh, yeah.
So that's where I was mentally, man. And then, over the last 5 years, it's been a journey. And you and I met, I believe, 4 years ago now.
Yeah.
And I mean, I told you when I met you. And
this is a legendary story. We're at dinner and we're having a very open sharing session, and JL tells me.
Yeah, no, I mean, I remember clear day. I looked you right in the eye and I said, man, I love who you are. I said I'm having, it's a great time. And I said, but truth be told, I would have hated you 2 years ago and wanted to punch you in the face. Yeah.
And then I looked right back at him and said, I know what you mean.
And that was like, I was like, we're going to be friends for a while. We're going to be friends for a while. So yeah. So the last, really the last 4 years has been building RPR and growing that and making an impact because it's made such a significant impact in my life, from how I parent to how I manage my staff to really how I do everything in life. And, for me, I think before I was in that survival mode all the time, and what doing RPR every day for me was, it puts us into performance mode and just puts you into that place where you can see more of the world, accept, not be so angry. And, it allows you to make much better decisions. And, the way I'll put it is, a drowning person is in the highest state of survival. And so they all of a sudden, someone who could swim, if they're drowning, they forget how to swim. They'll pull their most, loved one in the world down with them. And that's how I was living every day. That's how I was living every day.
That's powerful. Really, you said in survival mode, angry, and then I think at most times, they're not even aware of their behavior. That is who they are. It's who they are.
No, I think it's interesting. This happens, and I'm sure you've had this happen, where someone comes in to anatomy and they've been in pain for so long, they don't know what it is to live without that pain. So they've just accepted that as life. And then they get out of pain and they go, oh my God, I felt awful. And they didn't even realize how awful they felt. And I'll tell you a great example that everyone listening can relate to is I just got my prescription for my glasses redone. And, I didn't think there was an issue. I thought my how are you seeing? Great. Right. And I got my new prescription for my glasses, and all of a sudden, holy cow, I couldn't see anything. And that's really how I was living. I mean, I didn't think, I thought, so here's literally how I thought. And I've punched a lot of people in the face. And it's kind of how that hot dog cost me so much. So I thought nothing. What I thought is people were being, and I want to say this in the right way. People were being, and I don't know how to say it, but they were being obnoxious, rude, aggressive towards me. And so what I would do is I was bigger, stronger, and I was athletic. I wrestled. I second in the state. I mean, I could also throw hands too. Right. And so I wasn't just big and strong. I was kind of skilled too. Right. And,
which is dangerous.
And so when people would be aggressive and rude and all of these things to me, I looked at why are you being like this to me? And I would solve the problem by making them unconscious. Mm-hmm. And I really at the time thought that, hey, that's instant karma. What I've realized is that is the energy I was bringing to the world. And so those people were merely matching the energy I was bringing. And so when I was looking at them at that point in my life, I thought it was all them. What I've realized now is it was all me. And this is one of the things we teach in our PR. It's 1, 2, 3. 1 is you, 2 is your friends and family, 3 is everyone else in the world. And that's an arbitrary, it's a hard concept to wrap it around. But the way I think about it is, if all of your peace and all of your confidence in life comes from yourself, it's like standing on a rock. And no matter what anybody does to you, they can't move you off that rock because it's solid, because it all comes from within you. Right. And it obviously it's the,
very well said.
It's the Viktor Frankl piece, right? Where, they can do anything to my body, but I won't let them take my mind, right? Because it was all within him. And so that's the extreme, obviously, being in Auschwitz and all that. But so the way I look at that is, if you're on that rock, man, people can't even move you. Well, friends and family, that's like gaining your stability from sand. And so sand is kind of stable. If you need it to stabilize for short bursts, okay, but every time you take a step, it kind of moves. The wind shifts the dunes all the time. Water can wash it away.
That's for sure.
And it's just not that stable, but for short bursts, it can work. The worst place to gain your stability from is everyone else in the world. And you see it today. That's like gaining your stability from water. Well, if you're gaining your stability from water, you're treading water all the time. So it just takes a tiny little wave and all of a sudden you're drowning. And my whole life, I was gaining my stability from water and I was drowning because the energy I was bringing to the world was making a lot of waves. It was making a lot of waves. And so the crazy part is, right, is that when you look at that, and I think about it like that, you really have to take it further, because if you have just a rock and it's just you and it's barren, that's not cool. No one wants to live on a rock, right? You can't. However, if you have that solid rock and then you surround it with sand, friends and family, and then you have the rest of the world outside, all of a sudden now you have this gorgeous island everyone wants to live on.
I get it.
And the thing is the more you set that rock and grow it, the more people want to be a part of that and move to your island. And you attract the people, the energy that you put out. And more people want to come to your island. That's how influence is built. Mm-hmm. And the thing that I realized, and the reason I wouldn't have liked you so much, and I actually, it's funny, we've never talked about this, I just actually realized this right now, because I was drowning before at that point, right? Probably at that point, I definitely wasn't on a rock, but I was at least maybe on some sand.
Okay.
But I'd made that progress. I'd got out of that drowning mode every day. And you know, I said I wouldn't have liked it because inherently I just felt it and I knew it. I went back to that old pattern, and in my head, I just started thinking, you know, back to some old ways, right? This is a while ago. And what I've realized since then, and kind of as we're talking, is that if you're drowning and you're in that water and you're drowning and you see somebody standing up on a rock, how angry are you that they're just standing there and you're drowning? Because the person on the rock can't save you. The only way you can save you is getting out of the water. But the thing is, when you're stuck in that water, you don't understand that. And you're looking at that person wondering why they're not saving you, and you're pissed at that person. And so when you're in that place, people that are on that rock and they're you are angry at those people, and you don't
prefer them to be in the water with you.
Exactly.
Right.
And so what happens, and this is the interesting part, is you do something, and that person, if they're not on a big enough rock, they do get in the water with you.
Yeah,
but
you bring them down to your level, right?
And that's what we talk about, not going down to someone's level. It's that not bringing them out to the water is how I think about it.
So interesting. So very well said. What a great perspective and way to lay things out so people can just get a better understanding of, you know, where they come from. And I went to, I think we talked about it briefly on the phone, but that Vipassana retreat.
Yep.
That was like me getting out of that water.
Yeah,
It really
awesome.
was. It really was. I mean, I was going through some, and by the way, by all accounts, like no one would have known it. Like
Right.
the only people that would have known was probably my business partners,
Right.
and my wife, absolutely. Yeah. But I mean, I could hold it together, but I was really, like, something didn't go right. I would get so frustrated, so angry, and I would just fly off the handle. And if I wasn't on my schedule, I was going crazy, and I was like, gotta get this done. This is so important. But to the point where it was such a fault that, as we said before, one thing didn't go my way, Jay. It would get me out of my whole pattern. I was in darkness for like a day.
It's that wave, right? If you're in that water, that wave can do that. They get, you know, I obviously, you know, I haven't spent a ton of time with you today, but just we talk on a regular basis, and I know, man, you're on that rock. The waves can crash on the rock. Rock don't move.
Oh yeah. And then me going through that Vipassana was kind of a way. I tell everyone this. Anyone who has an interest or questions, but I say, look, it's 10 days. It was a retreat. By the way, the retreat is free, because it's the law of life. What they believe they put out in the world, they get back. So people donate millions of dollars to this thing to keep it going all over the world. 10 days, no talking, no cell phone, no email, no music, no books, no writing, no nothing, no eye contact. When was the last time you got 9 hours sleep every night? Completely rested, no talking, no cell, disconnecting for 10 days? The answer is never.
Yeah.
Never. So there's so much clarity that goes on there, and you walk out going, that was an issue. I fucked up there. I screwed this up. This was a mistake. And you're like, how do I fix this? And I know it sounds ridiculous, but just chilling out, putting some of my time to meditation, and changing from, as you said, I understand the reason that I excelled at football had nothing to do with strength, because I was strong. I wasn't half of what you could do. I was okay. Speed, nothing special. There's a lot of guys faster than me. There's probably a lot of guys faster than me that work at anatomy. But the point is, I had such a high level of aggression that was completely unmatched, that carried me at every level. Yeah. And they were like, dude, I don't know where that comes from, but that's going to take you there. And it's not good.
Well, here's how I look at that, you know, because I've thought about this, you know, ad nauseum, because that's what, right, when I went into lift at Westside Barbell, right, I wanted to destroy the weights, everyone in there. I mean, it is, and I called it caveman mentality is the way I looked at it. Was, you know, if you're bench pressing and you're holding 800 pounds over your face, there's no time to be scared, because it's over at that point. Mm-hmm. And that anger was so high. And the way I look at that is there's two ways to fuel things, is the way I see it. Fueling by anger is rocket fuel. Now, rocket fuel gets a lot of stuff done. Anger, hate, it's rocket fuel. The thing about rocket fuel is eventually it explodes. And the other way to fuel is by love. Love is not going to get things done as quickly as the rocket fuel.
Right.
However, the love, the energy that comes from it is eternal and never ending. So when we look at that long term, yes, maybe in a week, it's not going to be as good, right? You look at our staffs. If you scream and use hate and I'm going to fire you and this and that, it will get stuff done quickly.
Oh, yeah.
However, that person won't work for you very long.
No way.
And so it's been in my staff. I mean, they've obviously seen the transition, the folks that have been with me. And, I went, one of our, a kid came to us and we have it's CDP, it's our coach development program. It's an unpaid internship, but we don't call it an internship because to me, it's not about being an intern. By the end of our coach development program, you should be a good coach.
Right.
And you should be able to coach sessions. And I don't want my clients looking at you, oh, you're an intern, because there is a negative connotation of that, as 100%. If you don't know what you're doing. And to me, if we spend 12 weeks with you and I can't put you into, you're not going to be a world-class coach at this time, but you are going to be a very good coach. And so we had a kid go through our CDP, I don't know, 7-8 years, it was a while ago. And this year in August, the Spot Athletics it'll be our 10-year anniversary this August. So pretty
Congrats,
cool.
Man. That's
Thank
very
you.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's a huge milestone.
Yeah. Pretty proud of that one. And, and I always say it's just by luck we haven't, all the mistakes I've made, it's lucky we haven't gone out of business. You got to understand the difference between luck and skill.
That's right.
And I had no skill in the beginning, but I got some lucky breaks.
Yeah.
And
it takes that.
It does.
That.
No,
it
does. It
does.
does.
Some people work very hard and very smart in business acumen, and all of a sudden they're out of business. It's not because they made bad moves and we're smarter. There's luck involved, man.
There is. And I think, what happened was, there was a lot of luck because I had so much passion and knowledge. I think a lot of people put up with a lot of my behaviors, and some people didn't, but a lot of people did because they're like, oh my God, I can learn so much here. And so I just need to put up with the anger, with all of these pieces. And so the kid interns for us, and he did a great job, and he works part-time for us as he's going to school. And, I got him an internship, and he does the internship. And so I was going to an NFL team where he's now a strength coach at an NFL team. And, I went out there to teach RPR to the strength coaches. And we went out to dinner afterwards. And it was funny because after dinner, he called my director of performance and just said, what the hell happened to JL? He's a different human being. And so it's so interesting because, my director of performance, we were working on this project for a year. It took us a year. It was a huge project. And, it was, okay, let's get this. It wasn't something we had to have done in a day, but it was this big, long-term, pie in the sky project we were working on, and we finished it after a year. We went out to have a drink and dinner and celebrate, and we were sitting at dinner and after dinner we were having drinks and just talking, and we started talking just about the changes he's seen in his time there. And it was really interesting because about 2 years ago, and you talk about going to the retreat and having a breakthrough. I was doing some really deep work about 2 years ago, and spent 4 days going through some really deep work. And I got out of that, and for the first time in my life, I understood my story of why I did a lot of what I did and what had happened. And it was the first time. It was an amazing experience because, like you said, oh, this is why I did that. I mean, it was basically I had facts of different pieces that happened, but I didn't understand the context. And information without context is a little bit useless. And so I understood it, and what I did was I called an all staff meeting, and I brought everybody together, and I said, and I mean, it's hard not to get emotional about it right now. So I said, guys, I know why I've been the way I did for the first time in my life. I understand my story, and I want to share it with you. And so, I mean, I was crying. I mean, it was like, you can tell, like it's still really emotional.
It's heavy.
And so Gilly's my director of performance. He said that going into that meeting, his mindset was, jail's super smart. If I can just tolerate this for another year or two, I can learn so much and move on to do something great at the next thing. Wow. He said that meeting got over. Mm-hmm. He said when I walked into the meeting, he knew something was different. He said the meeting got over. He went out to his truck. He called his parents and said, the Spot Athletics is where I want to be the rest of my life. This is what I want to be a part of.
Wow. So that just you making a shift, the massive, which is, by the way, is probably the hardest thing you've ever done in your life. Number one, to acknowledge it, to dare to want to change it, and then share it with other people. Because you could know you're going through it.
Right.
But you didn't have to have that meeting.
No.
You didn't have to have that meeting. But you having that meeting showed to other people that how much you care and how much you want to be better. And people want to be around people who want to be better. But not with freaking training. That's like such a small piece of life. It's so, nauseating. Yeah. It's so small.
1 hour of your day. Oh, it's crazy. 1 hour. It's how you are in the other 23 that matters. It's how you treat people that matters. I mean,
thank you.
That's everything. And you know what's interesting is my mom, I remember saying this, and this was in college, so just after high school. And she said something to me one time, and honestly, not till I had gone through all this, had I really, it was funny. I don't know, one day it popped into my head, and she said, everybody says, if you're jail's friend, he'll love you, he'll kill anybody who hurts you, literally. If you are his enemy, you have, like, he will kill you. And
so extreme, right?
It has to be, and I was living so extreme, and I think that for me, I care, and we talked about this earlier, I care so deeply. I'm an all-in person, and you're an all-in person. Yeah. We just started, so I said this is why right away I thought, man, this is somebody that I connected with right away, because I can't be around people who aren't all in. I appreciate it. I respect it. I have to surround my people who know what it is to be all in. And so when I invest in someone, I invest all in. The issue was that, and so it's funny, Gilly and I talk about this other story, and this is the best. Your intent does not come through if your behaviors speak louder than your intent.
I have to stop you. That was so powerful what you just said, but like you said, if they don't care, but they have to they have to want to, like, what about people who say, I don't care, I don't give a shit how I affect anyone, like, I don't care, fuck that, that's their problem. Hey man,
well, again, I think people who are there, they are in the water, they're drowning, and the reason they don't care is because they're drowning. The only thing they can care about is staying above water.
Survival mode.
And so if you're in survival mode, you don't care about anyone else. See, this is the piece that I've really learned at a deep level since really diving into, reflexive performance reset and be activated is where RPR comes from. And it's this philosophy and it's this work. And what I've realized is that, and it's interesting, I hear what people say, but I listen to what their body tells me, because the body never lies.
They're not aware of it.
Not aware of it. Yeah. And so when people are talking and they say things like, I don't care, if you really just look at them and look in their eyes and see it, you will see sadness. You will see pieces.
They're telling you they care. They just try to mask it.
Because they're drowning. And when you're drowning, you sure as shit don't want to save. You don't have the capacity to save somebody else if you're drowning. And so to me, that person, when I first started this journey, I used to be, I was like you, F that, you can't be like this. And I would almost get angry at that person for being like that, because all of a sudden I understood, you know, a different mindset. And again, it's part of being on the journey, right? I had taken one step on the journey, and because I care so deeply, right? I want this person to take that step, right? And so, right, but you can't make someone start a journey that, right? And when I come across someone like that, I understand what's going on with them, and now I have empathy for that person. Right. And so at that point, it's okay. I'm not saying my rock's huge, but at this point I've got a pretty solid rock going, and I've got a tremendously better relationship with my family. That sand, right? Surrounded with that rock. I mean, until I started doing this work, man, it was 8 years I didn't talk to my mom. Oof. My mom was not, my grandma passed away, and I hugged my mom at my grandma's funeral. We both said, I love you. And we did not speak for 8 years. She wasn't there when my son was born. She wasn't at my wedding. Wow. And so doing this work got me to a place where now I was on that rock, so I could surround it with sand, because no matter what the sand, how it blows, what it doesn't move me off the rock. And so, you know, when you're in that place, your relationships get much deeper, because how that person is, you can stop and go, okay, they don't care. They're saying they don't care about someone. I know that means inherently they're not in a good place. So instead of being angry at them, right? But it also comes down to, you know, your capacity, because again, right, I care deeply about you. If I hear you say something about that, it's worth my time to dive real deep into that and talk.
Thank you. Yeah, that means a lot. But you have to make a conscious decision as to how much you want to emotionally invest.
And that's what I was going to say, is that, you know, no matter how big your rock is, there's a finite amount of space for people on that rock. And I've made certain conscious decisions about who I allow on that rock. Because the piece is, you know, if you allow someone who's negative, or even if you go to borrow and you work to help someone who's drowning, what I've realized is that you can't. If they don't want to grow and change, no matter how much time you invest emotionally, physically, all of those pieces, it's not going to happen. And so, and you've heard me say that time is our only unrenewable resource that we should care about in life. Yeah. And so for me, being down here, spending time with you, that is 100% of value, right? And to me, you have to value that time. And so you only have enough time to spend around people. So ensure, you know, yes, if there's someone in your life and you care deeply about them and you see that, then it is worth that time, maybe. Right. But you have to draw that line in the sand. Yeah. You have to draw that line of, do I want to spend my time helping this person? Where, and obviously, right, if they're family, that capacity to spend on that gets much deeper, because they're blood, right? And, you know, if they're friends, it's not maybe quite as much, right? And I mean, there's definitely, as I've grown, I can tell you, I mean, there are definitely, you know, people that were friends before how I was, and I'm not gonna, but someone just told me the other day, they know some people that we've trained with at Westside, and basically they were around them, and they were basically saying, you know, basically, oh, JL, he's this, you know, because they know who I was, and that's still where they're at. Now there's other people that have moved, and you know, it's great, but I think that's the biggest lesson I've learned, because as I started on this journey, I wanted other people to take the journey. Yeah, I hear you. And I was spending so much time and energy working to get other people to take this journey. And what I realized was so every second I spend helping someone who doesn't want to be on the journey is a second I'm not spending someone who does. Say that again. Every second that I spend trying to help someone who doesn't want to go on that journey and grow is a second I'm not spending someone who does. Thank you. I heard you the first time. I just wanted you to say it again for the listeners and for everyone. That sums up basically my last 6 months to a year. I just had to make decisions where I was like, man,
you have to draw a line and say, like, if you want to behave a certain way, look, there's nothing wrong with that. I just can't have you here. I can't have you close to me, because not only something's deep to my heart is I can probably take it because that's the personality type I have. I'm going to be empathetic. I'm going to give love to the people who are hardest to love. I'm just going to keep going in, because you said before, you got to know to go in, and I go in. But then at a certain point, when I'm doing everything I can and I see a toxic or negative behavior disrupting so many people, I'm listening to this book, Surrounded by Idiots. At this point, maybe it's not everyone else's behavior, maybe it's that person's behavior. And if they're not in that place, jail, to want to take that step, I'm not going to spend more time on it, and I'm not going to let you detract from others. Yeah. If you're not the addition, you're the subtraction. I can't allow it. I'm not that person. Like when I was a kid, my strength came from being bullied and then going back after bullies. I'm not going to let anyone else emotionally, verbally, or be abusive in a bully manner. Yep. Never. And if that person doesn't want to take the trip, how do you make those decisions? How do you make those decisions? If they don't want to acknowledge or understand the behavior and their energy and their subtraction is a huge detriment to the environment, how do you handle someone like that? After years.
Yeah, no, I know. And we've talked, I've gone through this. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, it started with this. Until I started on this journey in doing, the work. And for people to understand when I say the work, there's different ways to do work, right? You can do meditation, which is what it is really. And I think at an essence, and there's a lot of ways to go about it. I mean, psychedelics are becoming very popular as a way to do, right. And legitimately, people call that a journey, but there's other ways to journey. And the way I look at it is that development, it's a merry-go-round. It doesn't matter where you get on the merry-go-round. Maybe it is a meditation retreat for 10 days, or, I don't know, it's not called a meditation retreat.
Yeah, it's fine.
But it could be a meditation retreat.
Yeah, pretty much it is.
And so it could be psychedelics. It could be, through Be Activated, which is how I did, which was body work. You get on the merry-go-round. It doesn't matter where you get on the merry-go-round. Everyone wants to get off in the same place. And it's a place of love. It's a place of understanding. And to me, when I got on the merry-go-round, one of my misinterpretations, because if you have no experience with something, obviously you have low skill. And up until that point, and I started taking this journey, was I truly believe, and I say this jokingly, but it's actually true. I never felt empathy for anyone in my life. Never. I didn't understand what people meant by. I mean, I could tell you the definition. Right. However, I couldn't understand it. Mm-hmm. And so when I did start to open up those other emotions, and so my joke that I use all the time is, up until that point, the only two emotions I thought a guy should have was anger and orgasm, and sometimes together. And so, and that was, but that's where I was in that survival mode. And so once I started feeling this, right, and then I started having that for these other people, and then I realized what a drain it was on me, right? I realized what a drain it was on me, and that's when I came to this realization that there's more places to be, because you can have sympathy, but not empathy. And a lot of people think that that's semantics. It's not semantics. Words matter. I was talking to one of your staff earlier, and as I was asking questions, and you'll see me do this when we do the education, is I say, what does that mean to you? Because I want 100% clarity of what we're talking about.
Oh yeah.
And so I always say, what does that mean to you? Because I need to be crystal clear on what you're talking about. Because I can't, if I start talking and I misunderstand what you're talking about, mm-hmm. now you may misinterpret that differently. I may give you an answer that has no relevance to what you wanted to know.
Spot on.
And so, to me, my understanding of empathy and sympathy is I give this to my staff all the time, is that you can have sympathy for someone. That is, if you were stuck in a 10-foot hole, sympathy is standing at the top of the hole and going, hey man, I know it sucks to be in there, but I can help you out because I'm standing at the top. Empathy is crawling down in the hole with you and going, man, this sucks to be stuck in here. The piece about empathy is it's real hard to get someone out of the hole if you're down there with them. And so when I look and people are in this place, I really have worked hard, and I'm not perfect at anything. I really work hard to not use the terms right or wrong. To me, it's just about different. And so when someone is in that negative place and they're being in that, and I know, right, depending on the relationship, the time, then it's going to depend on how much energy I want to spend on that. I've really become in a place, so it's not about intolerance. I know if someone's in that place, we'll have a discussion about where they're at. We'll have a discussion about where they would like to be. Because if I sit down and I have a discussion with them and they have no understanding that it's an issue, they have no awareness. You have to have awareness.
Oh yeah.
So if I'm going to bring awareness to it first before I do anything, because if they're not aware, then they may be able to change it in 30 seconds.
Right.
It's like when I watch someone squat and I make them aware of an issue and I say it, if they have the capacity to do it, it's fixed. Same goes with how people are in their mindset. So if I make them aware and then we talk about it and then it stays for the next couple of days and does not change, what I know at that time is they do not have the capacity to change it.
Very well said.
And if they don't have the capacity, then I need to move on from that relationship.
That's when you make a decision.
I make a decision right there. I make them aware. Now, if they're already aware and they've told me they've been working on it, I know they don't have the capacity for it. And so at that point, in that first conversation, if they are 100% aware, and I get very clear, because I don't want you to tell me you're aware, I'm making you aware of this piece. And I'm very clear in that language. And I'm very clear on the behaviors, right? Take emotion out, we're gonna talk specifically what behaviors. And if they are aware and they say they've been working really hard on it, we talk about how we can part ways in a wonderful way, and I'll help them move on and go somewhere where they're at. It makes sense and they fit into wherever they're going is at.
Okay, that's fair.
And to me, because I care about that person, I want them to be successful. So I'll help them move on. However, I don't look at it as they have the wrong mindset. It's different. And having the mindset I have, having the mindset you have, it's not right. It's just our choice.
Right.
And so I'm very careful not to say you have the wrong mindset. You have a different mindset. And I can make the choice. You choose your mindset to a certain extent. However, and that's a whole other subject for people listening, people think that your actions and behaviors are dictated by your brain. They are not. They're dictated by a little bit of your brain, but mostly by your body or your physiology. Essentially, your body is this big so for millions of years, we evolved, and our nervous system evolved to keep us alive because everything was trying to kill us. And so that's 5 million years of evolution. Well, our brain started to expand and get really big, and there was a huge shift in genetics about 13,000 years ago. So the way we are today is really a 13,000 year piece. So the thing that existed for 5 million years, it still controls us.
Right.
So the way that I've read and I really like that makes sense is that you have this elephant body, right? It's this huge elephant, and you have a monkey brain. And the monkeys chatter all the time, and the monkeys can be smart and all this. However, they're riding on top of the monkey, or on top of the elephant. So no matter how hard a monkey pulls on the reins of an elephant, when the elephant gets out of control and wants to go where it wants to go, it's going to go where it wants to go.
Right.
And so this is the piece where the body work was so huge for me, because it's a totally missed piece of the world today. And here's where, and I seem to be one of the only people who is super upset by this. And I'm going to give this out to your listeners. And I don't think this is actually something we've talked about. I seem to be one of the only people in the world who's upset that the entire premise for our medical, psychological, the entire field is based on a misinterpretation of how human beings function. And I'm going to say it in one way that's very simple. Everything that is taught in our world today is what I call a mechanical model. So everyone's taught, you think with your brain and you move with your muscles. That is how doctors operate. It's how psychologists operate. It's what is taught in every physical therapy school. It is a misrepresentation of how we operate, because a cadaver has a brain and has muscles.
That's right.
But a cadaver can't think or move because it does not have an active nervous system. And so that nervous system, what I call it, depends who you are, I call it our ancient operating system, or when I'm talking to other people, friends, I call it our OG operating system. That is really, we don't understand, but that's behind the scenes running. And because I understand that at a pretty deep level, or at least deep enough to understand it, I guess, when I'm talking to the people in my life and having these conversations, I understand that their physiology is dictating their behavior more than what they say. So if they tell me and they're aware that they've been trying to change these behaviors and they can't, I understand they don't physiological have the capacity, and I need to move them on from my life to where they're not stealing emotional energy and draining me. Oof. And so you have to move them on quick, because if you make them aware and they weren't aware, then we have to give them some time to see if they have capacity. And the piece about this is so important is when you move them on, and I'm happy to help you move on and find a place where you fit, because it's not that you won't fit in and be great somewhere else. It's just where we are, where our mindset is, you are in a different place, and that doesn't fit in. You're a square peg and we're round holes. Right. The way I think about it, though, and I think this is really important for your listeners, is I'm not angry. The way they behave is not wrong. It's just different. And I can still love them. I can still respect them. I can appreciate where they're at. However, I can make the choice to not have that in my life.
Powerful. That's very well said. And I think it's so telling and so important to say. You have to remember, everyone listening, it's not that it's right, wrong, good or bad. That's where they're at. And it's like...
And that's where they're at today.
Right, today.
Because where I was at 8 years ago, when we met, I would have hated you. Mm-hmm. I love you today. I told you, you're one of my favorite human beings.
Oh, it means a lot, likewise. But, if you caught me when I was playing sports for a living, I would have felt the same way. I would have looked at you just as competition.
Exactly.
And I was so narrow-minded. And I think another part of this is, once you make I guess you could say it's possible for someone they could live their whole life and never have the awareness or acknowledge their blind spots or the things that they're challenged with in a behavioral manner. And like the way it happened for you, the way it happened for me, maybe it will happen for them. I had a friend that maybe 4 years ago, when he first came to Miami, I was like his mentor. I talked to him every day. He lived in my house, came over to eat several times a week. Then something happened. He just stopped talking to me. 2 years later, he sends me a text at 3:30 a.m. Long text. I'm so sorry. I was in a bad place. And, today we're really, really close friends, really close. And I just think that person, there's a lot of factors, I guess what I'm trying to say, that have to come into play for them to want to acknowledge and make a conscious decision to bridge the gap and acknowledge past behavioral or experiences, if you will.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying is it's spot on. And I think the piece for your listeners I really want them to understand as they're dealing with relationships is you cannot make someone want to change. You can make them aware. I'll tell you, there's a million people that made me aware my behavior was not good. Right. And I just basically wrote them off, and even where I was, I'd say, oh, they're a pussy. Right. And I just wrote them off because they were making me aware. So I was aware of what they were saying. However, because I wasn't in a place to listen or I didn't have the capacity to do anything about it, there wasn't even discussion. I was just more angry at that person at that point. And so obviously that's in the extreme end. What I found is most people will typically, if you make them aware, will acknowledge where there's issues. The piece about that I think is completely missed in our world by most people today is that it's not how they think they want to change. It's their body This is it. Everybody thinks psychology dominates, right? So the big issue for people who don't understand the history of this is it's Cartesian medicine is the model we live in. So prior, Da Vinci studied literally how the human body worked. I mean, everybody's aware of, right, of virtue and man, all this, right? The piece about that is Da Vinci was the last scientist who really studied application of how we worked. Then Descartes came along and switched the game to theory. And why everyone loved the switch was because with application, you can show whether or not it works. But there's also, the human body is so complex. I used to think I understood 95% of how things worked in the human body and how systems work and how they integrated. Now I'm a solid 1.5% of what I think I understand about the human body and behavior. And the piece about that is my 1.5%, in the way I see it, is much greater than where my 95% was, right? There's this wonderful saying that I love is as your island of knowledge increases, your shore of unknowing also increases.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think the piece about this for your listeners is if they're dealing with these relationships, and they can think to your own behaviors. Because here's the easiest way I like to tell this to people, because when we're talking about large behaviors and mindsets and all these people, I feel that those concepts, although we can define them, do become a bit arbitrary. What is not is weight loss. Weight loss is a number on a scale. Body fat is a number on whatever you use to measure. Right. So I always relate it to, I go back to fitness and I go back to lifting because it's what I know best. And so think about this. If it was just about awareness, it was just about mind having awareness, the psychology. If it wasn't about physiology, right? Just that's all the only, and this is how, I don't know why I'm the only one who's super upset that we operate on an incomplete model of how humans behave. I don't know. In 20 years, the way we operate now, I know will be laughed at, like when they laughed at, now if my 5-year-old knows germs cause infections. 150 years ago, they'd cut your leg off if you had an infection because they didn't know what caused it, right? We laugh at that now. I think that's where we'll be in 20 years because for everyone out there, think about this. For the most part, everybody in the world, or we'll not even the world, we'll take it to anatomy. Everybody at anatomy, 100% are aware of what they should eat to look the way they want. Does everybody in here look super amazing? Well, maybe at anatomy, but but no, and that's the world, right? Everyone understands what they have to eat to be healthy. They're aware of how they have to, they need movement. Right. Everybody's aware, but their body, their physiology doesn't have the capacity. Mm-hmm. And this is missed in the world. And so when you're dealing with these behavioral conversations and you're dealing with these emotional conversations, once you have awareness that it's not just about what they're aware of, but their body, their physiology has the capacity to do it, you start understanding that you need to break those, you need to stop putting your emotional investment into that person. Because here, I go back to lifting. Yeah. Doing that for the listeners out there, if you do that, it is like someone coming into anatomy who only has the capacity to squat 300 pounds. And every day they come in, you put 500 pounds on the bar and you're putting all your emotional energy and you're screaming at them, you're counseling them, you're mentoring them. But every time you put 500 pounds on the box, so think about it like this, the 300 pounds is negative mindset, behaviors that are detractive. 500 pounds is positive mindset, behaviors that are additive. Every day they're walking in and they only have the 300-pound capacity, but you're putting 500. Your expectation is they're going to squat 500 every day they walk. How ridiculous is that expectation?
The height of it.
But we do that with people's behaviors.
Mm-hmm. And then we keep trying to force them to take the journey when every sign, every tell in the world is saying it's not going to happen.
Well, and I did this, right? Because I poured so much time and energy into somebody who was not ready to take the journey. Now I look back at that and I go, man, what if I spent all those hours, all those years, all that emotion to actually build someone who wanted to take the journey? Oh my, what an amazing relationship. How
For life.
How successful would I see that person being?
Then it's fulfilling for you.
Because now my investment in my emotion and my time, it pays off because I see them being out there being successful. I see them being a strength coach at an NFL team, right? I see them being a strength coach at a major college university.
Right. Sure.
Now that investment of time and energy that I put into that person, that paid off. Oof. But for everyone out there, I'm sure everyone listening or most people either invest or want to invest their money at some point when they get a little more. Mm-hmm. Everybody listen, answer this question for yourself. And I'll answer, right? Like, I think to myself, like, JL, do you want to invest your money, and time's more valuable than money? Mm-hmm. Do you want to invest your money when the investment is telling you, I'm going to lose all your money? Like, they're telling you up front because you see their behaviors, and their behaviors are telling you, we're going to lose all the money.
Every flag.
And you keep throwing your time into that. And so where you end up is you invested all this time, the most precious resource we have, and you're sitting there however long later, 6 months, 2 months, 3 months, 5 years later, mm-hmm. and your return on that investment is zero. So why spend time in that? Why spend time? Once you make someone aware, see if they have the capacity. If they don't, they're not ready. You don't have to hate them. Keep a great relationship with them, because someday, and this is the thing, keep a great relationship. Right? I said, you can love them, you can respect them, you can appreciate them for where they're at today. And someday they'll be ready. And now you haven't spent, because here's what happens, you know this, if you spend 6 months wasting time on someone and it just doesn't work out and they move on, you've now soured that relationship so much, there is no coming back when they're ready for you to do that, because you've already wasted all that time, so you're not going to do it again. Right. You have been ruined. That relationship is now ruined forever. And you can be cordial, right, but if you cut it off right away and just say, hey, we're in different places. I love you. I want to help you move on to something that fits more where you're at now. And then in 3 years, they're ready. Now all that time you would have wasted, now you can invest it, and the investment will pay off.
Man, that was so well said. Just you breaking that down, I think, the sand, water, and rock was a very, very powerful example. I mean, I think that's going to be a takeaway that I remember for years to come, and I hope our listeners do too. I really can't thank you enough for that. I know we had a brief chat here, but JL is going to drop some knowledge bombs on our team here at Anatomy. So we have to run to that, but really, man, I can't thank you enough for being on. That was incredible. You want to plug the RPR now?
Yeah. First of all, man, just, thanks for having me on.
Please.
Obviously,
this is incredible. We can talk for 10 hours.
Yeah. And so, obviously, talked a lot about reflexive performance reset, the impact that's had in my life. So if people go to reflexiveperformance.com, they can learn more about it. We have online course. We teach you how to do everything yourself. And like I said, it's self-applied breath and body work. The breath work is just a specific way of breathing, and the body work just entails basically we're called wake up drills, as you know, but it's rubbing specific zones of the body in a certain sequence to make that neurological shift in your body. And so reflexperformance.com, and then also if people go to coach_JL on Instagram, that's where I post a lot of different pieces, and people can communicate with me if they have more questions about what we talked about.
Okay. Listen, guys, go check out JL on Instagram. Check out Reflective Performance Reset. JL has a wealth of knowledge, and he's been there. He's trained his whole life, competed, and now he's passing it on, paying it forward, being a great teacher and a great human being. So check him out, JL Holdworth. Thank you again, my friend.
Appreciate it, brother.